Interestingly, at a recent meeting that we had with churches together in Britain and Ireland, we joined an online community for evening prayer. We asked, in a conversation after the worship, we asked some of those who were joining us from various places around the world whether the online worshipping community replaced the local church, if you like. It was interesting what they said, that for some of them it was an addition to, it was a supplement, if you like. For others, who were in particular circumstances, it was their way of hanging on. Partly because they were housebound, partly because they were living in a very isolated place, partly because they would have some form of disability, or that members of their family would have a disability. And I was very moved to hear one story of someone who, in a sense, was talked through the night with their child being extremely ill, and how the online community stayed with her and prayed with her and so on, and she was able to engage in that way. Do you see real opportunities for mission in the context of our digital engagement, and what are some of those things that perhaps we might be becoming more aware of?
Lots of ways. Let's start with where you started, Bob. A traditional parish, you have the vicar or the minister, or the lady is, leading prayer during the week, for example, a daily prayer of some sort, or at least Sunday prayer. I could see great networks of people actually joining in daily prayer on the screen. And indeed, not just housebound people, but people who simply haven't got the time to actually, or in the wrong place, to pop over and join a community in church. So I think that's one instance. But where someone is housebound or physically unable to actually to have contact with other human beings for worship, then the online dimension really becomes not just their lifeline, but their main line as well. And that really is very important. I mean, in traditional theology, when you have, say, somebody who's very sick, and they cannot actually receive the Holy Communion physically, for whatever reason, either in the form of bread or the form of wine, whatever reason, it occasionally happens, then Christian theologians, pastors, have always taught that person actually receives the fullness of the grace of God in that sacramental encounter, even if they've not physically been able to be receiving the bread and the wine. Extend that analogy, and those certainly who cannot have a direct personal face-to-face encounter, they are still encountering human beings, the other end of the line, whatever it is, the other side of the screen, as it were. They may be doing it through the digitally, sometimes through a virtual world, sometimes, as it were, directly online. But that also can be a means of grace. The Baptist theologian who I have very great interest in, Paul Fyffe, well-known ecumenical theologian, did some work a couple of years ago, I think, which I've actually used as well, on sacraments and all that, and he took the line that, of course, sacraments involve the physical reality of this world, but a virtual world also uses electrons, photons. It is a micro world, at least the bits and pieces that make it work, and don't ask me how they do because I don't know. But that is still physical, and it's human communication in a different way to the way we use. But nevertheless, it's still part of God's created world, and therefore can be God-bearing, grace-bearing.